Sirens tore through the afternoon like knives, echoing off glass towers as people screamed and scattered in every direction. Phones dropped, strollers overturned. Somewhere between panic and disbelief, a shadow moved across the concrete. A lion, full-maned, pacing freely where children had been standing seconds earlier. Police shouted orders no one could hear. News helicopters circled, broadcasting terror live, as social feeds exploded with one word: run. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't a movie. This was raw fear, unleashed in daylight, and the city responded the only way it knew how: by fleeing. Men in suits bolted, tourists froze, then fled. Mothers clutched their children and ran without looking back. And then the camera caught something that didn't fit the story. An old woman stood still, no scream, no panic, no rush to escape, while the crowd dissolved into chaos around her. She stepped forward, slow and steady, eyes fixed on the animal everyone else feared. As armed guards raised their rifles, the old woman did something no one expected. The city held its breath, unaware history was to change. Hours earlier, officials would insist this was impossible. A reinforced enclosure, layers of steel, years of assurances that the public was safe. But one failure was all it took: a faulty lock, a rushed inspection, human arrogance wrapped in paperwork. And suddenly, the most powerful predator on the grounds wasn't behind glass anymore. The lion emerged as exactly what the headlines needed: raw muscle, unfiltered instinct, a living embodiment of danger. News tickers screamed breaking alerts. Anchors used words like rampage and unstoppable. Experts filled panels warning viewers to stay indoors, stay away, do not approach under any circumstances. Fear became the official narrative. Viral clips flooded top minds. Shaky phone videos zoomed in on massive paws, flashing teeth, eyes scanning the streets. Comment sections erupted with calls to shoot, to destroy, to end the threat immediately. The lion was no longer an animal. It was a villain, stripped of context, reduced to terror. Almost no one asked how it escaped. No one questioned the systems that failed it. Accountability vanished beneath panic. The city demanded control, not understanding. Fear rewarded speed, not truth. And outrage drowned out responsibility at every level. Sirens multiplied. Helicopters hovered overhead. Orders contradicted themselves in confusion. Evacuation orders blared louder. Streets emptied fast. Authority tightened its grip. And right in the middle of the evacuation, when fear reached its peak, the cameras caught her standing. She looked nothing like a hero. Small, bent slightly at the shoulders, wrapped in a faded coat that fluttered in the wind. She stood alone in the open space everyone else had abandoned. Her hands were empty. No weapon. No shield, just quiet resolve etched into a face lined by decades of survival. People screamed at her to run. Strangers begged her to move. Guards shouted commands through megaphones, their voices cracking with urgency. They warned her she would be trampled, mauled, killed. She heard them all, and she ignored every word. Around her, younger bodies moved faster, stronger, desperate to escape. Sneakers pounded pavement, cars screeched away. Fear bent spines and stole breath. But the old woman did not flinch. She planted her feet as if the ground itself belonged to her. There was something unsettling about her calm. Not recklessness, not confusion. Something deeper. A dignity that refused to be hurried by panic. Cameras zoomed in, unable to look away. Viewers online questioned if she was brave or foolish, sane or broken. Yet no one could deny the stillness she carried into the storm. She took one measured step forward, then another. Her eyes never left the lion's path. In that moment, authority lost its voice. Fear lost its power. And the crowd fell into an uneasy silence. Sirens faded, whispers spread, and even the armed men hesitated, sensing that something ancient, human, and irreversible was unfolding in front of them before the world fully understood why. And when the lion finally noticed her, time seemed to stop. The lion turned, one step forward, then another. Each paw hit the ground with a dull final weight, like punctuation at the end of a sentence no one wanted to finish. Muscles rolled beneath its skin. Teeth showed, not in rage, but in instinct. The distance between predator and woman collapsed faster than anyone expected. The street went silent. No sirens, no shouting. Even the helicopters seemed to hold their breath. Somewhere above, snipers adjusted their scopes, fingers tightening, waiting for the slightest excuse. One twitch, one sound, one wrong movement, and the decision would be made for her. She did not retreat. Her body looked fragile against that mass of power, but her eyes never dropped. Fear rippled through the crowd, watching from behind barricades and screens, watching vulnerability walk straight into danger. This was power versus frailty, instinct versus intention, nature stripped of metaphor and laid bare. The lion lowered its head, its tail flicked, dust lifted with every step. Time stretched, thinned, slowed, to the rhythm of a single heartbeat pounding in a million chests at once. Comment feeds froze mid-sentence. News anchors stopped speaking. Every instinct in the crowd screamed for violence, for certainty, for a clean ending. Fear demanded control. Mercy demanded patience. The air felt charged, electric, as if the city, itself was waiting to see which impulse would win today. The distance closed to nothing. Weapons were aimed, orders were whispered, history balanced on the edge of a trigger. And just as the final breath was drawn, just as the shot was about to be fired, the old woman opened her mouth, and the world leaned forward to hear what she would say. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. No command, no warning, no fear dressed up as authority. Just a soft call that cut through the tension like a memory rising uninvited. The kind of voice meant to soothe, not dominate. Cameras strained to catch the sound as microphones leaned in, hungry for proof that this was really happening. The lion stopped. Mid-step, mid-breath, the massive body froze. Its ears twitched, its head tilted. Not in aggression but recognition. The teeth disappeared, the tail stilled. What moments ago looked like inevitable violence softened into something uncertain, almost curious. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted higher. Live streams surged as viewers flooded in by the thousands, then millions. Comment sections that had demanded blood seconds earlier began to stutter, filling with disbelief, with questions, with a single repeated phrase, "What is happening?" She kept speaking, low, steady, words meant for one listener, not an audience. Whatever she said, it carried weight no weapon could match. The lion exhaled. Shoulders dropped. The animal that had been framed as a monster now stood calm, exposed, suddenly vulnerable under 1,000 lenses. Armed men hesitated. Fingers loosened. No one dared interrupt the fragile stillness unfolding in front of them. This was no longer about control. It was about connection, about the power of being seen rather than feared. Across the world, people leaned closer to their screens, sensing that something profound was breaking through the noise. Fear had paused. Violence had been delayed. And in that suspended moment, one truth began to surface, quietly, unmistakably. No one understood yet how deeply those words were, rooted in a shared past that would soon rewrite everything they believed about this moment forever, and without warning. And then the truth behind her words finally came out. Moment that shook the internet within hours. The footage had circled the globe. Millions of views, countless shares, every platform ablaze with disbelief. The city's chaos, the old woman's courage, the lion's pause, everything was caught in high-definition proof that truth could still defy expectation. Hashtags trended. Hashtag lion lady. Hashtag courage unseen. Hashtag fear paused. Celebrities posted reactions, some in awe, some questioning sanity, all amplifying the story. News channels ran endless loops. Panels argued bitterly. Was this reckless endangerment or a heroic act of humanity? Experts debated ethics and instinct, dissecting behavior while the world watched. Fear-based thinking clashed with empathy. Control clashed with connection. Comment sections transformed from panic to reflection. Strangers pondering what it meant to truly see another being, human or animal, and respond with care instead of violence. Viewers experienced collective awe. In living rooms, offices, and cafes, people whispered, replayed, and debated. Some cried at the calm bravery. Others marveled at the lion's unexpected deference. Across time zones, humanity was momentarily united by something bigger than headlines, a shared sense that courage could manifest quietly, without spectacle, yet still shake the world. The moment became a symbol of patience, of dignity, of the bond between care and memory. It challenged every narrative that power must dominate and that fear must rule. Even those who had fled felt compelled to pause and reconsider what bravery really looked like. And yet, for all the viral glory, all the hashtags and debates, all the awe and validation, one truth lingered quietly in the hearts of those watching. But what this moment truly meant went far beyond one lion. The chaos faded, sirens silenced, and the world finally exhaled. In the aftermath, it became clear the true danger had never been the lion. The real beast had been fear itself, roaring louder than any predator, driving people to flee, to judge, to react before understanding. What stopped the lion and transformed a moment of terror into one of awe, not force. It was compassion. Deliberate, unwavering, a courage so quiet it almost went unnoticed, yet powerful enough to halt instinct, to rewrite the rules of fear, to teach the city what dignity could achieve. In that fleeting pause between panic and understanding, the old woman reminded the world that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stands still, and the world moves around it, reshaped. Violence cannot compel recognition. Only presence and empathy can, and in that presence, the crowd, the cameras, the millions watching online saw something larger than themselves. A reminder that humanity's greatest power is the ability to respond with calm and conscience, even when everything else screams to flee. The lesson endured. Fear loses to understanding, chaos yields to dignity, compassion triumphs where force fails. And sometimes, the smallest, quietest act of bravery leaves the loudest mark on the world. Everyone ran, screams filled the streets, phones trembled in hands, yet one old woman stood her ground, calm, unwavering, defying everything the city thought it knew about fear and courage. Now imagine yourself there. Would you have fled with the crowd, heart pounding, eyes wide with Panic, or would you have stayed, even for a moment, trusting something deeper than instinct, something older than fear? This wasn't just a lion. It was a test of humanity, of presence, of dignity under pressure. Everyone ran from the lion, but one old woman reminded the world what real strength looks like.